Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. This is Talking Point. My name is Sean Michael Small on your WESN Content Capital. And I am joined, of course, by a usual Wednesday contributor. Hopefully, we will be joined by my co-host in a very short while. But we bring forth now, of course, with the legal mind herself, we are slightly switching gears, but we are staying within the same realm that we have been occupying the last 2 days, talking about the government and noticing, well, I guess you could say at this point it's something of a trend, it's something of a track record. The precedent has been set multiple times, which is why I feel comfortable saying that. I asked yesterday with regards to accomplishments. What did the government accomplish? What have politicians who we elect, whether it's government or opposition, what have they really accomplished? Well, let's take that a step further. What has actually happened? And we are, of course, joined by Mrs. Karania Shishera, who has a very interesting take. I mean, the stories themselves are not new, but when you tie it together, you put it, you take the implications as far as they would reasonably go. There's a pattern of behavior that leaves us having questions, and I do wonder to what extent are the people of Trinidad and Tobago satisfied with the results, with the implications we've had from first last year with the whole scenario with the Service Commission and the FUL investigation, of which we are still getting some of the fruits of that controversy are still bearing on the tree this year up to this week. And then, of course, there is the decision with regards to the indemnity deal. And these types of decisions, where does that leave us with regards to trusting the political class? And I say the political class because I am not necessarily going to just say, well, it's all one side's fault and the other side is so much better. But to be fair, right now, the government are the ones on the hot seat, and they are the ones facing the fire. So let me welcome Karania Shishera, former Minister of Finance, and of course she has taught almost all of these politicians their legal education. So she is very disappointed seeing some of these results. Karen.
Oh dear, it's true. It's nearly everyone that I meet of a certain age group that says, Miss Sherry, you taught me. I said, I did. But to get back to the point, and I want to frame it in a wider context of the government's responsibility and the government's responsibility, and certainly this one, standing up for issues of transparency, accountability, respect for the rules of natural justice, fairness, and integrity. And that's really where I'm framing the discussion, which we had yesterday in terms of how do we look at today's discussion. Mm-hmm. And of course, it comes a lot from I think from my legal training, that we tend to look at a principle and then apply it to the facts. And I wouldn't be less than frank with you to say that what I am going to say bears on the my concerns about the very same issues of fairness, transparency, accountability, equity, integrity in the form of the electoral process for the internal election. But that's not the topic today, but yes, it does bear on my concerns over that. And the first one I wanted to start with, because these are the ones that are in the news recently, is, as you say, the Vincent Nelson issue. And two defenses, so to speak, have been put forward by the current Attorney General, who himself, has put himself at a credibility, in an issue of his own credibility, given our memories are not that short, that he gave a witness statement, which is equivalent to giving evidence in a witness box, that he was not a senior counsel and all of that, and he wasn't really involved in the matter with the airport authority, which in itself, and his response to that was not very, very convincing. And by the way, I like him very much, but that's not about liking someone. It's about how they operate in the office. So having tarnished his credibility in a way that he could not give a good explanation for it, we now see with the Vincent Nelson case now holding the office of Attorney General, trying to defend the position of the government. And one of the things that has come up is this issue that he's used two excuses, two reasons. I think the excuses for not releasing the indemnity agreement. Now, the indemnity agreement is a catch-all phrase, because to indemnify someone is to hold them harmless against. And there are provisions in that agreement that cannot really qualify as holding you harmless again. I mean, things like giving you a pardon from the president, trying to persuade the DPP not to pursue any criminal proceedings. That can't be a part of the indemnity, but it comes under the broad heading. So, having said so, there are two issues that come to mind. And the most recent one, that he is relying on the so-called sub judice rule. And it caused me, because I read another lawyer who had a different take on it and said the sub judice rule, and he was right, came about from criminal proceedings, because in criminal proceedings, it is a jury of your peers that decides on your innocence or guilt. They decide on your innocence or guilt. So to have matters discussed prior to or during or before the matter is adjudicated and a sentence determined can be prejudicial to the outcome, and therefore there's this rule that you should not really discuss. This pre-trial publicity may be prejudicial to the outcome. That has a lot of, sorry, but I don't know why I'm coughing like this.
Well,
it has a lot to do with criminal proceedings. I think I better go and get some water, because I think that may help.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Well,
Let me just go and get some water.
As Karen is trying to sort that out, we'll take a break right here on Talking Point. When we return, we'll let Karen continue with regards to her concerns. Well, it's a legal matter, but the legal expertise, really and truly the judgment, and like I said, it seems to be a pattern of behavior that we do now have to ask, will it continue? And if it does, how bad could it get? But when we return, well, hold on, Karen. Let's just take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get further into this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Welcome back to Talking Point. So, of course, when we last left off, Karen unfortunately had a small coughing fit, but it's very important that she finishes the point that she was making so that we could then get into all of the wider implications. Karen, as you were speaking with regards to the attempted explanation as to why the indemnity deal and certain other things potentially they did not want to disclose to the public.
Right, and I said that I was putting it under a broad umbrella of the issues of natural justice, breach of the fairness, integrity, transparency, and accountability, and it has been a recurring decimal. So we were looking at the most current example, which is with regard to the Vincent Nelson issue, and the two defenses that the Attorney General has mounted against the non-disclosure of the terms of that agreement, which I said goes beyond indemnifying, but is broader than that, but they use that catch-all phrase. So what were they? One, I was saying that it is true that sub judice rule, which is a rule that says you should not discuss a matter before the trial because it can be prejudicial, because the persons who determine the guilt and innocence in a criminal matter are the jurors, the peers, your peers. The sentencing is the judge, but the guilt or innocence is your peers, are the jurors. So you do not want them to be unfairly prejudiced by pretrial publicity. So that's where that rule arose. In England and the USA, in civil matters, they do use jury trials. We do not. Our matters are heard by a judge and a judge alone. So the risk of a jury coming to a different outcome in a civil matter, which is what the Attorney General's role is dealing with civil matters, the DPP dealing with criminal matters, does not seem to arise. Further, when I looked at the indemnity rules in civil proceedings, they said, yes, it's not something that you normally would use, that the sub judice rule does not normally apply in civil proceedings, but it can apply in two instances, which in this case do not appear to be applicable. And that is where the litigant themselves, because of the pretrial publicity, is sort of intimidated into continuing to pursue the matter, where we know the Attorney General is not intimidated. And the other one is where witnesses themselves, because of the pretrial publicity, may not be as forthcoming because they feel intimidated again. So those are the two limited circumstances in civil matters in which Trinidad and Tobago has no jury trial in civil matters where you could say the sub judice rule is applicable. So therefore, what I'm saying is I'm essentially rubbishing the Attorney General's argument about the sub judice rule. And in fact, the Express, in the editorial of the 31st of October, said questions that will not be silenced. And they're saying that any rule, no matter what the rule is, even your constitutional rights to freedom of expression are limited by rules of defamation or not running in a theater and shouting fire, right? You can't do that. You know, you don't have that level. There's always a public interest you have to balance against your interests that have to be protected. And the Express asked some very pointed questions, and they are not taken in by this question. They said questions that will not be silenced. And among them, I won't go through all of them, the chain of decision-making within the government that culminated in signing of the indemnity agreement, the public release of opinion of the Douglas Mendes on the indemnity agreement. Do we know what advice he gave the government? Because it may very well be, I do not know, that he may very well have said to them, listen, I don't think we have a good case. You want to proceed, but these are the dangers. We don't know if they advised them not to do that. And I'm making that point because Faris Arroyo, he was then the Attorney General, made a big to-do about I did not act alone. I acted on advice of two senior counsels. So you have to wonder, is there in that advice some advice that said perhaps we should not pursue this or indicated the dangers of going ahead with this agreement? Then also a full explanation of the government to commit to non-disclosure to the Parliament. How could they have done something like that? Do they have that authority? Is it within their power? And most importantly, sum of money paid to Vincent Nelson by Rowley's administration in a breakdown of payments, the accounts from which payments were made, dates made, process, and route by which Nelson received payments. Clearly, I feel they have the answers to those questions. And clearly, they believe that is what the government does not want to release and are using this sub judice rule as a mask, and a very thinly veiled mask that is very weak, to prevent that, and it's not holding water. The other reason, the other thing he did was he defended, at that time, Stuart Young, who was not the Attorney General, but he was in the Attorney General's office. Now, how could you, number one, go to the UK National Criminal Authority and give them a copy of a notarized statement that was signed by Vincent Nelson and the then Attorney General without notifying him? Because the Attorney General did not know. That's number one. Number two, you spoken in truth. You said that you stole Vincent Nelson. You think I'm so stupid as to do that? And why would the National Criminal Authority of the UK need your help, right? Because all of this was being publicized. They have an embassy. Vincent Nelson is a citizen of the United States. And in fact, when he relied on the mutual legal assistance legislation, which I had a quick look at, the central authority is the Attorney General's office. But you have to make a formal request for assistance. You don't just hand over documents like that. So that whole thing about handing over the document, there is a procedure in Part 3 that says you make a request in writing and there are constraints under which you will not give that information if it has political overtones, etc. So the whole thing about Stuart Young handing it over to the NCA without the AG, then AG not knowing, and then saying he didn't do it, you know what that says to me? There's a lot of infighting going on there, because all of them, in my view, are trying to position themselves at that time to take over from Rowley as the next prime minister. And in my view, all of that was to undermine Farisal Rowley at the time. And that does not speak well of Stuart Young, because he lied. So he said he didn't do it. He said, I would do something stupid like that. And then our AG relying on the mutual assistance legislation, which I just looked up. Again, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but it seems that you have to make a formal request. And I don't think any formal request was made by the UK for it. And why you handed it over and didn't let your AG know? So that alone speaks to concerns. And of course, the Express knows that the argument against non-disclosures do not hold water. But then I go on to the Sagicor Maritime case. That was a judicial review application against the central bank. Now, I have to say for your audience that when you make an application for judicial review at the high court level, you're pretty well going to get through, because once you are shown you have an arguable case, the bar is fairly low. So at that point, it was Maritime challenging the award to Sagicor of all of CLICO's traditional business to Sagicor, and they're saying they wanted a judicial review of the central bank's decision. They were successful, and then the central bank appealed that decision. Now, what I learned in reading the Privy Council decision is that the normal thing is that you have 2 bid rounds. And it appears that by the second bid round, that Maritime came out on top using their guidelines that they have determined for how you award it. So Maritime had been successful. But what is very noteworthy is before the appeal court central bank announced its decision, the Minister of Finance came out in 2019 and said that Sagicor got it because they are a better company, they have their business, they're more stable, and all of that. So it is clear that something is amiss when your Minister of Finance is talking before the central bank even says anything. And what is even more troubling, and this is what the Privy Council made the decision. They said after 2 rounds, which is the normal, they went to a 3rd round. Guess when? A year and a half later. And what the Privy Council says when you read the decision is that while the bar is low for getting judicial review, if you challenge it, which is what the central bank did, you have to come with very, 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 very good grounds, whilst for the applicant being denied his application for judicial review. That is Maritime. And I'm no fan of Steve Ferguson, by the way. When central bank then went the next step and went to the Privy Council, they said that you have to now have exceptional circumstances to deny a person the right to judicial review of a decision. And of course, they lost. But what is very troubling is that the Minister of Finance came out before there was any formal statement from central bank saying that Sagicor got it because they're more stable and so on. I mean, they won the round. So it is just very worrying. And the more recent example is where the Board of Inland Revenue, one of the senior members of the Board of Inland Revenue, won her action against the Minister of Finance for overlooking her for the position of chairman of the Board of Inland Revenue. And why did she win? She said because when the decision was made to pass her over, the Minister of Finance never gave her an opportunity to address the concerns that he had, never gave her an opportunity to be heard. In other words, breached, that's what the court said, that it was unfair, breach of her natural justice rights, and that is the Minister of Finance. Do you see a common thread here? And the final one now is the FUL matter. Now, to be correct, the judge, I think it's Justice Mohammed, had summoned initially 6 members of the National Council, which would have been the Prime Minister, Faris Al-Rawi, Colin Imbert, Hines as the Minister of National Security, Stuart Young, and 6 of them to appear before her on November the 9th. No, it's Devendra Rampasad was the judge. Apparently, by next day, the order was rescinded and said it was inadvertently sent and that they no longer required them to appear in court, but they can be represented through the Attorney General. Which is very strange that within one night that you made a big mistake like that. But that was the mistake you said he made. But the point I'm making is he was granted leave. That is, and I'm no fan of Gary Griffith. Let me just say that for the record. But Gary Griffith has been granted leave for judicial review against the state regarding the firearms report. Because, again, he said that after the National Security Council, which he said didn't have the authority to do that in the first place, after having that report created and put together by 2 officers, he was not even told of that report. And then when the report was finally completed, he was not given an opportunity to be heard, to answer anything. So his rights, breach of natural justice, fair play, equity, again, and on that basis, he was successful in getting the court to order a judicial review of that decision that they were going to send the report to Parliament. He said, even now, sending it to Parliament and telling him that they're looking at it, he is asking an injunction to stop them from sending it to Parliament. I am not defending any of these people. But what I am saying, these are all public law matters. And in public law, the remedy that you have is judicial review. And when you go to judicial review for the public listening, it is when you have no other relief that the domestic law provides. So you go to the judicial review, public order, the legislation for relief. And in every single case that I have cited to you, the government has been found wanting in breaching a person's natural justice rights, right to be heard, equity in every single case. And I can't help but say, I cannot help but mention that that is what I am seeing in the internal election. So if I'm seeing it from the persons who are in the government today, the key players, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, who hold the position of chairman and hold the position of leader of the PNM party, and the whole process, which is reeks of a lack of fairness and transparency, and you're seeing this happening in public order and in public governance, one after the other. What confidence can I have in any of them? The Stuart Young, they call him Imbert, the Prime Minister, because every single order they have lost, and it has been lost because they have not given the integrity, the natural justice, the fairness and transparency, every single case.
Well, as I now look to bring in my co-host to comment on what Karen just said, I would just like to add quickly that this is not the first time we've necessarily seen independent institutions be potentially interfered with. The whole situation with the Police Service Commission is the obvious example for those of you who've been watching this show. And also, to back up what Karen was saying with regards to the indemnity deal, when former Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi was giving his press conference to sort of give the public some sort of explanation, he avoided the question. He didn't give an answer. He didn't give a non-answer. He literally said that he could not answer or avoided the question with regards to cabinet and the Prime Minister's involvement in the whole situation, if my memory serves correct. And then finally, I'd just like to point out with regards to the current Attorney General's comments on the reporting, because he wanted to complain that the newspapers were reporting on Saturday, order issued on Friday. Well, sir, I would hope that an educated person as yourself would realize that for newspapers, that's generally, they need the time. They're going to be printing news from the day before. That's just how it goes. Hopefully, our current Attorney General might have a better understanding on how print media works and not necessarily go off half-cocked once again, because this situation is technically only the second major incident to my memory that he's dealing with, and he's not necessarily looking that he's handling it very well. Keaton, that's a lot to take in, but I do think it kind of, it goes into what we've been saying for the last couple of days, where we've been questioning the merits of the politicians that we choose, that we elect, the leaders that we decide to follow. What do you have to say about that?
Well, good morning, Karen. Good morning, Sean, and good morning to all the viewers. I mean, certainly there was a lot to take in, but I'm appreciative of Karen actually coming in and going into much detail and referencing not just the case of Vincent Nelson, but many other cases that also show that, and you know, repetitive, but you can have an education, you can have a degree, you can have a master's, you can have a PhD. It really does not mean anything. The thing is, if you notice, the current government, and in instances of past governments as well, are full of lawyers. You've got Stuart Young, who's an attorney at law. You've got Faris Arawi. You've got Marvin Gonzalez. You've got Fitzgerald Hines, who actually, if I'm not mistaken, studied law as well. And now we've got Reginald Amor, who is also a part of the lawyer group within cabinet. And quite frankly, it seems as though they're working very hard to outsmart each other. They're so smart, they don't even realize at times what they're doing to themselves. The issue in particular with Colm Imbert, I've always had this opinion that Colm Imbert could say, he's allowed to say whatever he wants to say and do whatever he wants to. And there's never anybody as such that can hold him to account. Because if Faris Arawi says he didn't act alone, he received advice from external lawyers, who is the individual, or who are the individuals that are actually advising Colm Imbert before he takes such actions? For example, most recently, the firing of Jiwala Ramaran. You know, and then, Karen, I'm glad that you referenced that issue with the member of the Board of Internal Revenue. That's just another instance of action being taken, and you're wondering exactly where they're getting this advice from. Who is advising them? So, you know, you can have a bunch of lawyers in a room, and you can call it a cabinet. And quite frankly, you can go inside there and come out feeling a lot dumber, whilst at the same time portraying that you're a lot smarter. I just don't know where you know, when you try to put this all together, you realize one thing. If ever you need a good laugh, just look at cabinet. It's all over the place. It's a complete mess. And quite frankly, who is going to clean it up? Because yes, Dr. Keith Rowley, who leads cabinet, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, also the leader, the political leader of the People's National Movement, well, Colm Imbert is the chairman of the PNM as well. You know, so these individuals who are in these positions could do whatever they want. And quite frankly, I think also Colm Imbert doesn't care because of his seniority, I suppose, because of how long he's been there, and because of the position that he's in. There is nobody to tell him anything at all. And by the way, he's probably the smartest one of them all, because they always tell you whenever you go to an institution, you need to know how to play the game. I think he certainly is an individual who knows how to play the game.
And it's not as though those are the only examples we could come up with. The public health regulations and how that was handled, where the then commissioner did not even want to repeat the Prime Minister's claims that the TTPS had the authority to go into private dwellings to break up private parties. Then there's the whole situation in Tobago, where it seems as though the Tobago-led THA got used to allowing central government to do more or less whatever they wanted. So now, I'm not entirely sure to what extent the current administration in ETHA is going to push it. But the whole situation with regards to how the airport expansion project, or however you want to describe it, is being managed and who has authority over it, given the fact that it seems to be that the current setup is operating outside of the parameters of the THA Act. So there's many instances where not just the procedures are questionable, the decisions are questionable. Are they conforming to the rule of law? I do expect later today that the professor is going to call and say, why did you all forget our annual administrative report? So I'm putting this in now because all of that leads into transparency. There seems to be very much a lack of wanting to give all the details. Government gives us details. That's the one thing I'll give them above the opposition. But they select what they want to give us to paint the picture as much as they can, the picture they'd like us to believe whenever Common says that GDP has grown. Yeah, but relative to what? Relative to our depressed state in the pandemic, anything would be growth because things were suppressed. Our economy, for all intents and purposes, the activity was reduced during lockdowns. Keaton, you had something to say.
Yeah, very quickly, I just wanted to also say, if we are to be fair, Reginald Moore could probably be a brilliant attorney at law. He can be very good at what he does. And it may be the same for Faris Al-Rawi. Colm Imbers as an engineer, well, I haven't heard very many good things as Colm Imbers as an engineer. But the point is, these individuals in their professional capacity could be excellent at what they do. When they get into politics, however, whomever they're taking instructions from, or whatever their plan is, their overall plan is, it messes up everything. So Reginald Moore, he could be a great attorney, but he might not be a great attorney general. Because for as long as he is doing what he is told to do rather than what he should do or what is supposed to be done, then guess what? It's his reputation, and I don't think he realizes this. It's honestly his reputation that could be stained, probably not through his private client's eyes, but definitely within the public domain.
Well,
we
have to take a break, Karen. We have to take a break.
Okay.
I don't want to go over time. Just want to say I very much doubt his suitability in a political position because he doesn't even understand how printed media works. And I know, Karen, that there's some stuff some conclusions that we haven't gotten to that Keaton was implying them, but we'll get to that after the break here on Talking Point. Folks, we'll be right back.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Talking Point. And of course, for our viewers, it might seem that this week especially, and maybe the last couple of weeks as well, we are highly critical of the government. And I just want to remind viewers, well, the opposition, they just have a very straightforward role, which we have been critical about that as well, or the lack of performance there. But they don't deal with policy. They don't make decisions. They don't have an active role in running the country, or they have a much less active role, maybe it's better to say it that way, than the actual current sitting administration. And right now, therein lies, it will be irresponsible for us to weigh both sides evenly when one side has a lot more responsibility and we're supposed to hold them accountable. So I'd just like to remind viewers that in case they want to think that we're somewhat unbalanced, because the discussion is technically not over. There are a lot of implications and a lot more things to say, even on just the brief examples that we've given for the morning. Karen, I know you wanted to make another point, moving the conversation along.
Yeah, but I want to also say with the criticism of the opposition, sometimes it's better to leave people to make the mistake and just stand by and let them. And that can be a strategy. And their strategy has been to let them make their mistakes. And when they make their mistakes, they have their lawyers. Every case, they have had their lawyers involved in these matters. And each case, which I have, including, I forgot to mention Joala Rambaran, he brought unsuccessfully, he didn't get his 7.5, he got 5 point something for breach, for unlawful dismissal. And again, it was on the basis that he had not given an opportunity, that it was done I think when soon after the new government took office, but the same idea of opportunity to be heard, etc., etc. And the opposition lawyers have been defending those matters. So sometimes you just have to have your popcorn on the side and allow people to make their mistakes, and that in itself is a strategy. So I don't know if they need to say anything. They're saying they're doing a good enough job, and then some people might say, oh, you're just posing for posing's sake. So let them go ahead. So nobody could say that they're criticizing for criticizing, say the government doing a good enough job on its own. But I wanted to say, with regard to all the discussion that we had, there is a columnist which I admire a lot. He may not know that, but he probably knows it now, Noble Douglas. And I read it on the Sunday with their columnists, all of whom I like. Most of them, Martin Daly, Ralph Mirage, all of them I like. But I like Noble Douglas also among them. And this article, I think, sums up what we are talking about, because I felt I should actually copy what he said. His heading was Money, Money, Money. And he was talking about the current Vincent Nelson issue, shrouded in mystery, opaqueness, and he was speaking generally of the fees paid to attorneys by the Attorney General and other public entities. The amount of fees that they pay out, I don't understand, but this is what he said. This kind of behavior leaves citizens in a confused, angry state. Every time this type of situation happens with no consequences, citizens believe such conduct by privilege is acceptable, and the bar for expectations of public officers gets lowered. The descent into corruption gets normalized. The behavior is no longer unethical, but becomes expected. The rule of law is hindered, and the government becomes delegitimized. When the legitimacy is lost, the integrity of the private sector and country's development are undermined. Inequality worsens, and we will witness this insidious growth of money laundering, gun racketing, the drug trade, and human trafficking. And I just want to say a thing as a former member of cabinet. I heard what Keaton had to say. You take instructions from your client. I have a client, you know I had my own matter, and before my lawyers would act, they would take instructions from me because they did not want, at the end of the day, that I then complained that they had done something that I did not give consent to in writing. So it is the client that gives instructions. That's number one. Number two, the instructions, if there's on Gilbert Peterson, it would be based on instructions that were given to them. And as you said, everybody there is a lawyer. It's not a question of the legal issues. I think this is a fight that was going on, in my respectful opinion, within the cabinet as who is going to be the next prime minister. And everybody is trying to throw everybody else under the bus. Stuart Young was trying, what he did, in my respectful opinion, what he did to the Attorney General was throwing him under the bus. And it made him look bad. The Attorney General now coming in, I think there's a big fight inside of there. I was in cabinet and I know how it operates. There's not a kumbaya group of people. There are people who have ambition and they're entitled to have the ambition. There are people who have ambition to be the next prime minister, and nothing is wrong with them having that ambition. And when your prime minister, at his age, has signaled that he's not going on, again, he mightn't even go for the whole term, it heightens the issues among cabinet members to be the chosen one. So when you, and by the way, Colin Imgood has a degree in law. So he's not a lawyer, but he tells you that he has an LLB degree, and he is very smart. So let us just say that I don't think the mistakes that were made in ignorance. I think they made the mistakes and they made those errors, maybe against the advice of their own lawyers. Who knows what the lawyers were telling them? And that's why the Express says, let us see what Douglas Mendez's advice to you was. Because I suspect in giving the advice as a responsible lawyer, he would say, listen, this is what your instructions are. This is what you want me to do. This is what is doable. This is what is enforceable. This is what I think is not enforceable. These are the dangers in your request, your instructions, and this is what I'm saying to you. So we don't know what he said, and it's very unfair to him, and it's very unfair to Gilbert Peterson, if in fact that is the case, that they have been thrown under the bus and they cannot say anything because of client confidentiality. That is one of the privileges, that the only person that could break that confidentiality is the client. That is, I used to teach status, I wrote a book on status, and that is a rule of law. So they cannot come out and say what is in that agreement. The person who can do that is the person who gave the instructions. And I have a feeling that we may not know that Douglas Mendez and Gilbert Peterson may have warned against the steps that were taken, but they are not free to say that because of those rules of privilege against disclosure. And I think that, Keaton, this is not a question of legal minds and not understanding. No. This is a question of infighting within the cabinet for a position which they all may want, and therefore throwing each other under the bus in so doing. Because remember, when Stuart Young handed that notarized document to the UK NCA, National Criminal Association, or I can't remember what the last word stands for, they have an embassy in Trinidad. They read the papers just like we do. Vincent Nelson is a citizen of their country. You don't need that, and you gave it to them without telling your Attorney General, and you gave it to them. I read in mutual assistance, as I said, and you have to make a formal request in writing for assistance. And I don't know that anybody from the UK NCA asked for that assistance. I think he handed it over without letting his AG know, to make him look bad, because he obviously believes that whatever was there was, as a lawyer himself, would make him look bad. And the fact that the AG now is trying to stop that from being released, and the fact that the Express is asking some very pointed questions, only makes me more sure that what you are seeing in that cabinet is more about infighting among each other to get that vaunted ambition to be the next prime minister. And in order to do that, you were going to make your other colleagues look bad. And that's the name of the game. So I don't know if I want to look at it simplistically and say that, oh, these lawyers are giving bad advice. How do you know if they gave that advice? Lawyers probably told them, you asking me to take these instructions, I'm telling you, you're giving me bad, I'm telling you, I'm warning you what is wrong with it. If you want to go ahead, go brave, you're the Attorney General. And the other point I want to make is the Attorney General has a dual function. That Attorney General, Reggie Amor, that is why in America, in England, the Attorney General is not a cabinet minister, is not part of the cabinet, and is not a minister. You know why? Because they hold a dual function, to give advice to the government, but also to protect the interests of the people. So it is a very tense sort of situation that an AG finds himself in. But it seems that our AG seems, as our other AG seem, that his loyalty lies only to protecting the government and in very tenuous circumstances. So, you know, they're just looking bad. And it feeds in, let me finally say, because I have to say that it feeds into my concerns, my tremendous concerns, which I hope to pursue, as to how the electoral process for the internal elections. Now I understand why people keep telling me that, you know what, you know, you have to look at how that process is being conducted, in which everything is stacked against you, and the very persons vying for positions within the internal election chairman are the very persons who have control over that process. When the ECB, when the Election and Boundaries Commission, independent constitutionally, in charge of our national elections, for one thing, they do not give any party the contact numbers of any of the voters. But the Belize House has those contact numbers. I don't have them. They have an unfair advantage. I could go on and on. And so if I believe that they are any faith in anything they're doing, the 23rd of August, shutting down the date for hearing, for registering as a voter. You want more people? It's not a football club. You want people to join your party. So everything they have done, the 3 days, the boxes, the whole thing, when I see what they're doing in the public domain, those same actors in the public domain, the court holding them to account. When I see that, and we see that, you don't understand that I am now absolutely convinced that I have reason for concern. And this country has reason for concern, because what you allow here at the internal level is what you're allowing at the public level.
Well, just quick, we have 3 minutes. Keaton, I want to switch gears a little bit, because there's another thing that came about through some of the comments that Karen and you said in the last segment, and that is basically who is instructing cabinet. Now, I think it's safe to assume that people in the position of Reginald Armour, they might get instructed by the Prime Minister and Coleman Bates, senior figures in the cabinet. But then both of you all, I think, also pointed out that maybe the senior figures in the cabinet are getting instructions, because Keaton, you pointed out Coleman Bates himself. And I do have to ask, you know, should we be concerned with regards to party financiers having a little bit too much of an influence? And there's also that dimension with regards to how our political situation is being, you know, unraveled.
Well, I think to answer your question in short, party financiers will only be concerned about the direction of the party as long as it benefits them. You see, I think the party could, you know, could have that infighting, that level of infighting, can have chaos. You know, that doesn't matter to financiers. Listen, as long as my business is secured, and as long as I'm receiving what I'm supposed to be receiving, then so be it. You know, I don't think it really matters that much to them. I don't think it's that important.
But what about the fact that they might be influencing government decisions?
Well, that happens all the time. That's constantly happening. Put it this way. The mere fact that up to this point, Dr. Keith Rowley in 2 election campaigns spoke about campaign finance reform, the legislation. He wanted to reform that legislation. And up until this point, that has not been done. that says a lot as it is. You know, so they are influencing government all the time. But again, it's to their own benefit. So yes, you're absolutely right in the comments that you made, but it doesn't matter whether or not the party is breaking down or whatnot, because they can shift across to another party at any point. You know, that's the thing with being a financier. You're apolitical as long as it benefits you. The other side of it, the other aspect is that often we've stated that one of the things that the People's National Movement, the current government at least, and the current cabinet always had as a trump card over the United National Congress was that at face value, they seemed a lot more united than the actual United National Congress. That's what it seemed to have been. But in the last few months in particular, you're starting to see a shift in that. You're starting to see a shift. So you see the mere fact that internally, the People's National Movement is breaking down and there's so much infighting by so many personalities who want a position for themselves, then to me personally, that is, it's individuals, it's selfish characters of individuals or characteristics of individuals that will not necessarily lead to the death of the party, but weakens the party to the extent that a weaker party could look stronger, if you understand what I'm suggesting.
A weaker alternative or a less impressive alternative will look better.
Precisely. And as I conclude on that particular note, you see with the People's National Movement government currently, it started off, I think, when you and I were rather shocked when publicly Marvin Gonzalez and Rohan Sinanan, they were just blaming each other. And that just died a natural death. But it has not, this infighting, you have to have a united party. If you can't have a united party, then quite frankly, you're a weak party.
I think
that's why the other parties eating popcorn and looking on.
We have to break for news on the hour. I will say this, I do believe there are other instances of infighting, not just in now at the cabinet level, but also with regards to various arms of the government. I think it has to do in some part with the budgetary restrictions. As much as the Minister of Finance would like to say everything is fine, everything is great, and we have growth, I think that the lack of resources to spread around as much as they would like is now leaving ministers, well, hey, I don't have money to look good, and I need to look good, and I don't want to take the blame, and I want to shift as much blame as possible to somebody else. But we will leave that there. We have to break on news on the hour. When we return, of course, we'll open up the phone lines. I'm sure we will have a lot of pro-PNM callers when they say that we're biased, and some pro-UNC callers when they say that we're the most fair, objective thing since yesterday's news. But we will leave that judgment when we get to it. Now we break for news on the hour.
Is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Duma calls on citizens to band together to fight crime. Piako man charged with murder and firearm offences. 6 more succumbed to COVID-19 in the last week. And internationally, Kyiv water supply restored but blackouts remain. Now for the details. Duma President Gregory Aboud is calling on citizens not to be fazed by the rising crime. Speaking with state media, Aboud called on citizens to band together to fight the criminal elements.
There is a very serious situation developing in the country, which has become quite serious in the last 10 or 12 weeks. And it has always been serious, but it's accelerated. And we recognize that the citizens are becoming engulfed in hopelessness. We heard the Commissioner of Police on the weekend when he was interviewed about there being 500 murders for the year. He said he knows it's a serious situation. let us not bemoan our situation. Let us get organized in our communities, become united, get the neighborhoods together, get the towns and cities together, form a WhatsApp group, put the police on the same group and start identifying suspicious activity, start restricting access from your community.
A 23-year-old man is expected to appear before Anarima Magistrate today, charged with the murder of Kasiva Diva, which occurred on October 6th. Kyle Bain of Orpun Gardens, Piako, was also charged with wounding with intent and possession of firearm and ammunition. 25-year-old Diva, also of Piako, was outside his home in the company of other persons when 3 armed men allegedly exited a vehicle and shot at them. The assailants then fled. The victim died at the scene while a female victim sustained gunshot wounds during the incident. 6 more persons have succumbed to COVID-19 in the last week. This brings the death toll to 4,255. According to the Ministry of Health dashboard, 141 new cases were also recorded, taking the active case count to 375. The rolling day average of new positive cases are 20 and the rolling 7-day average for deaths is 1. At this time, 36 persons are hospitalized. In international news, the authorities in Kyiv say water and power supplies have been restored a day after a wave of Russian attacks on the Ukrainian capital's infrastructure. Announcing the resumption of services, Kyiv mayor on Tuesday said scheduled partial blackouts would continue to manage electricity demand. The latest strikes followed an attack on Russia's Black Sea Fleet in Crimea. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, now is the time where we open up the phone lines. I do expect maybe some callers might very much agree with us and very much disagree with us. So I'm very interested to see just how many callers will actually be a bit more in the middle. But let's hear what you have to say. We have our first caller ready from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller. Caller, good morning. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, morning.
Oh, hi. Good morning, guys and Karen. I can't hear a singer, so I'm just going to talk. Before your various PNM factions start calling and arguing and everything. Karen, 5 weeks ago, I was actually the first person on this show to congratulate you. However, silly me, I did not realize that you left at 9 on that day. So officially, can I please say congratulations on this bold move at such a critical time? Because under Keith Rowley's leadership, our country has spiraled into a bottomless pit, as this government is an abysmal failure. And you have demonstrated competence, strength, integrity, all necessary for good leadership. And if you're focusing on one of my favorite topics, the 17 MDGs and Manning's 2020 vision for a progressive country, Keaton and Sean are tired hearing me talk about that. The students who were to be given jobs in keeping with the country's development needs. And once more, as we speak, incompetence, obfuscation, lack of transparency, and oh, by the way, this is on behalf of our alma mater as well. Just by the way. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Caller from Diego Martin. Karen, I think you're muted, or we can check our audio levels. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so we do have another caller from Petty Valley. Good morning.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton, and good morning, Ms. Nunez.
Good morning.
Ms. Nunez, the problem I am having with you, we have a term called conflict of interest in law. I am not a lawyer, but from a layman view, I think it probably means you have an interest in something. So I'm not a lawyer, okay? So the problem I have with you, since you announced your position of running for the leadership of the PNM party. When you come on these shows here now, the platform, and speak, sometimes it come across that you are campaigning or not giving information to the viewership, because what you are saying could be your own assumption or your own views. So being respectful to you, which I am, I just find you're in a ticklish position when you come and speak now on views. That is my. I don't know if you're getting my drift where I'm coming from.
I do, and I understand what you're saying. And I do understand the challenge I find myself in right now.
Yes, thank you, caller from.
As you rightfully said, I have to also be very careful that I do not come across as using this as a vehicle for doing that. And I am always willing to take criticism, and I understand what you're saying, and I respect your point of view, and I take it into account.
I just want to state that not only has Karen, checked with Keaton and I to make sure that she's not being unobjective. I'm sorry if that's the incorrect word, but also, technically speaking, some of these conversations started since last year, to be fair. So, at least from our end or from my end, this is the direction of the commentary that my opinion will take. But I actually do agree with the caller in that, Karen, you do have to, you're now walking that very fine tightrope, and I do not envy you at all, because it could very easily come across the wrong way. We do have a caller.
What I will strive to do, because I understand the concern expressed and I respect it, what I will strive to do is to continue to make my contributions as I've always made, but leave out the political component insofar as my challenging for the position and thing. But I will say what I was, because I would have said it anyhow, but I won't mention my political thing unless they interview me as a candidate. But I understand what you're saying, and I respect it.
We have a caller from St. James. Good morning, caller. Hi, morning. You're on here. You're live on here, caller. Go ahead. Hello, hello.
Hi, good morning, caller. We can hear you.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, go ahead. You're on here.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, caller. Caller.
All right, okay. I think, caller, I don't know what the issue is.
Hello?
I don't know if guys the audio levels any box.
Okay, good morning to you guys.
Morning.
Just, I have a couple questions here.
Sure.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
All right. Caller, well, you weren't hearing us, but if you could hear us now, that probably the call has ended. Call back in. I don't know what the issue is.
Yes. I'll just want to advise, if, generally speaking, once you're on the air, just go ahead and ask your question, even if you can't, even if you don't necessarily hear us, just go ahead and ask your question if you think you're on the air. Hopefully, I'm not entirely sure how you would know you're on the air. I'm not entirely sure what the issue is. We have a caller on the line from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Hey, morning, gentlemen, and Karen.
Morning.
Good morning.
You all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because there's something on the line, but yes. Let me say this. I have looked at Shara on the program, and even before we started, she announced a bit that I'm almost since I've looked at her on the program. I think she's always stayed. Even though she criticized the party, it was always constructive criticism. So I have no problem with that issue. The second thing I have to talk about is this issue. There was a caller last week, gentleman, that had called, and I had called in saying that I had seen nothing of the AGC housing project on Touch Street in San Fernando.
Yes. Yeah.
And Miss Karen Prasad put something forward on Monday night there. And I am appalled that, and I don't necessarily think it's house padding, and I'm not even going down that issue. However, I am appalled that they want to take a 1 hectare of school green space to to put a housing project in the vicinity where in the radius of 200 meters, there are 5 schools. In the history in San Fernando of all those building projects that the government has done over all the years, all those building communities have been all crime hotspots. And you all could ask the superintendent to get the data for you all. All of them. Even the most recent one they did in Current Hills is becoming another crime hotspot in San Fernando. And to think that they're going to put one with the history, to put one in not even Mass Toronto, in a spit of 5 schools, they have to be crazy. This is one time the PNM is going to get opposition with this, because I am one who if I alone have to come and protest this, they can't be serious. And after all that evidence, where all these other people, the ministry, the permanent secretaries, come out and said she doesn't recommend it. The town and country come out and said they don't recommend it, and then the parliament, the cabinet still come and approve it when you have 4 members of cabinet, 3 of them from San Fernando, Brian Manning, Clarissa Alwari, and Kazim Hussein, who know that area, and the Minister of Education said, no problem, they have to be crazy. Thank you all, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you, caller. I very much like your take. It was a situation where I was waiting for some more information, though I realized that, yes, there was something there. But that take is very important.
Let's point out the fact that many stakeholders disagreed with the project. Cabinet still went ahead. And what's interesting is that HTC said they're willing to work. They're willing to work with all stakeholders to ensure the best possible outcome. But preliminary works have already begun.
But it's not just that, Keaton. What could possibly be the best possible outcome where every example that I know of is basically a low-income government housing high-rise turns into an easy target for criminals to basically have a block that they could exploit, right? It's not that the people living there are all going to be criminal. It's that the situation is so exploitable that it turns itself into a crime hotspot far too easily. And it's not just in TNT. We see it in Chicago. We see it in Baltimore. We're talking about multiple large jurisdictions in the States and possibly in Europe as well.
Yeah, and down here as well, I have to say it. I'm being honest when I say it. A prime example of this actually is Maloney Gardens. You're always hearing of somebody being shot and killed there or something taking place there. The project at Maloney Gardens, that is so it is an example. These HEC, this is what I said, HEC in Trans Tobago was supposed to be beneficial to the people of Trans Tobago. And it still is to some extent, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's something that we should stop, but it's something that we have not managed at all. It's something that we have not managed at all. And managed isn't the maintenance of the buildings alone,
Yes.
With any property valuation, any property at all, real estate agents will always try to sell on the amenities available in the area, right? Where it is located, and also security, right? Security is very, very important to a homeowner or any person trying to sell a property. And quite frankly, these HCC projects have become criminal hotspots. We have not managed this. And we've actually just allowed them to continue. Because if somebody shot and killed in Maloney Gardens, guess what? Nothing ever comes out of it. Police go, they take their photos, the undertakers come, they take the body. That's it. So...
We have a caller from Port Spain. Good morning, caller. Caller, you're live. Hello, hello?
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Folks, I listened with tremendous interest this morning to what Mrs. Nunez Teixeira had to say. And I want to say to you that I have found it to be very objective in telling the story as it is. You see, life is about a series of stories. And she is in a position, having been having served among the wolves and the lions, to understand and to grasp what is currently happening. And I have no doubt that her phone lines ring off all the time from people within the very cabinet who call to share with her the challenges that they are unable to surmount on their own, and they seek counsel and advice. I get those calls, and I have been so far from the politics for so long. I want to commend once again Mrs. Nunez Teixeira for the excellent job she continues to do in bringing, as it were, clarity to the issues. The reason why so many callers are lining up to call in is because they want to ask a question, but no more than that, they want to bring the issues to her attention. That issue that is going on in San Fernando is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
It is no different to what Dr. Rowley has done in Diego Martin West, where I struggled to create the last bastion, the West Park Savannah in Diego Martin. I struggled against all odds. We won it in court. We retained the land, and we earmarked it for the last, as it was, standalone green space in that part of Trinidad. What has happened? You bring a bank on it, you bring the regional corporation on it, and then you take a big chunk of the limited land and you put an overpass to allow people to move from West Mall into Four Roads, Diego Martin. I'm saying to you, these are the things that will come to haunt us. And that green space in San Fernando must be protected. And I stand with the people of San Fernando myself. All I can ask at this time, and this is crucial, is that democracy is dying in this world. Democracy is dying in this world. We got saved a little bit in Brazil yesterday over the weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we have a big challenge coming up in the midterms in the U.S. And we will have the same kind of challenges within the PNM this month. It is coincidental, but it is instructive. All of this is happening. All the democracies that matter to me is are at a risk at this time. And this is what Mrs. Nunez Teixeira is arguing about. These matters must not be swept under the carpet. The issue of democracy in the PNM is fundamental to democracy within Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, thank you.
And make no bones about that.
All right.
And I pray that she's able to prevail on this occasion.
Thank you, caller. All right, we do have another caller waiting in the wings. We have another caller from San Fernando. Good morning, caller. Caller, good morning. Caller, hello. San Fernando? I think we lost that caller. I'll just like to state that if you just want an example of how bad it could get, just look to Brazil right now, where the country is very much divided, and there are questions with regards to how the election results, what the long-term implications there would be. With a 50.9 to 49.1 split, the margins are so narrow that shenanigans could be had. We have the caller. We have San Fernando on the line. Good morning, San Fernando. Morning.
Good morning, everyone. I wonder if you're hearing me. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Hello?
You're live. Go
hello,
ahead.
Good morning. Yes, hello, morning.
Yes.
Morning. I trust you guys hearing me. I know the line's giving problem. One, I'm a... Yes, morning.
Don't listen to the TV.
Hello.
Just
yeah,
go
morning.
ahead. Don't listen to the TV.
Yes. I just want to say good morning to everyone. I born and grew up in Leather Forest. I am 61 years old. I born and grew up in Leather Forest. Right? And I born and grew up in Leather Forest. I want to say this to the panel this morning. Right? I'm 61 years old, and I born and grew up in San Fernando West. And I want to say that when I was 61 years old, all the schools and the gridlock and the traffic from Coffee Street comes straight back has never been addressed, right? They put a walkover to Mbakade to Broadway. And you have 5 schools on the junction at 12th Street that children run across the highway to get across on the other side. They're doing all kinds of crazy things in San Fernando, and nobody is consulting with anybody. And San Fernando is in a total mess where it concerns traffic and gridlock and schools. If they go to put this place, this building in the middle of 2 schools, the Old Technical Institute and the ModSec, and Astra Primary, and you have all these things, they're going to cause chaos in San Fernando here. And nobody seems to care about the residents of this. Is a residential area. This has been a quiet area for many decades. Mr. Manning's mother-in-law come from Sukaran Street, right there. And you have a lot of PNM people in that area. And still you have people want to go forward with a project like this to frustrate the daylights out of people. People run from the plannings in Mbakade, shoot people and run through Sukaran Street. Shots are being fired from the scheme down in the back of the Open Bible Church. And nobody addressing all these things. And so we in San Fernando West, we under siege. And now you're going to do a nonsensical project like this in the heart of a residential area. The other thing I want to say to Ms. Nunes is this. I respect you very much. There was a caller talking about conflict of interest, and I want you to stay the course and stay on track if you really want to be the leader of the PNM. But I want to say this to you, that if I am a child in my father's house and I have a next child, and 2 we do a wrong thing, and the parents only correct one and not correct the other, they're going to have chaos in the household. And when it comes to correction in this society, if you cannot correct the people in leadership, if you can't discipline them, if you can't bring charges against them, don't come to the ordinary man and say, I had to put you in jail and I had to correct you and I had to discipline you. Because we are looking at leadership from the status where people who in leadership cannot be corrected. The law association, the judiciary, the police, they can't correct nobody in leadership. But they want to come to the ordinary citizen and enforce the law. And this is where it's going to have problems and start to have problems. And so if you cannot correct the leadership of the country and rein them in and bring them before the courts and let the charges stick. We never see a politician go to jail in this country. Never. From John O'Halloran come back, Roy Joseph, you side of them. We never see a politician go to jail. And now it's totally out of control. And you can't come to the ordinary citizen and say, I bring you in jail, I bring you before the court, because you can't correct the people above us. Leadership in a poor condition in this country. And so morality and integrity and credibility has been thrown out of the window. And so this country is a total mess. And whoever sits in the place of leadership must rein in people, not from the bottom, from the top first, before you deal with it.
Thank you, caller. We have another call from the, Diego Martin or another San Fernando. Diego Martin?
Just want to say I agree totally with what he said.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
But we have our last caller on the line. Did we lose the call?
Viewers, please forgive us this morning. You see what happened. TSTT is our service provider. So essentially, I don't need to say anything else. You know, I apologize. But
I mean, Keaton, just one more example of our government working for us.
I'm hearing a call on the line. Good morning, caller. Hello?
Well, I think we've lost the call, or we don't really have time to take the call at this point. Or are we live? Hello? Caller, if you don't listen to the TV, just go ahead.
I hope you are hearing me.
Yes.
No, I am here. Yes, but I'm not hearing you. Yes. First of all, a caller complained that Karen may be campaigning on the program. There's nothing wrong with it. That is what she's supposed to be doing. Showing why she should be best for the post. Unlike the incumbent, who is talking about building high-rise school in San Fernando, when the town and country planning refused planning permission for a development which is about flood prone. And he went ahead and tell the population, if you wait on town and country planning, you never get anything done. I prefer to hear Karen's position, convincing the public why we should vote for her, for the leader of the PNM and therefore the next Prime Minister.
I just will say this.
Before there's no crime plan for Trinidad and Tobago. There is.
I will just say this, and that's all I will say, is that...
Hold on, Karen. I don't think Kola can hear us.
Explain what policy means in respect to government. And we say you do not know how to make politicians...
Okay, all right. Kola, I know that you might have problems hearing us, but we are more or less out of time. I'm sorry. Karen, quick, if you want to give your comments.
Yeah, I just want to say that is why I am going up for the leadership, because I know that there's need for change. I know they're afraid of me because the change I will bring, I owe no one. I'm in nobody's back pocket. I owe no one anything. I am free of any encumbrance, and I have stayed the course in respect of what I stand for. And I can assure you I have the strength, the courage, the commitment to stay the course to get to see the change. So if you believe in me, I assure you that is my intention.
Keaton.
Sound like a political statement.
Very quickly, as it relates to democracy, democracy is just another word that could be found in the definition of democracy could be found in any dictionary. It's a political theory that is not necessarily truly applicable to everyday life. And look what I said, are truly applicable. Mm-hmm. It's just another word that could be found in a dictionary. So, folks, honestly, when you look at what's taking place, we speak about around the world, but in TNT right here alone, if we focus on what's going on down here, we realize, boy, are we in a very difficult position.
Mm-hmm. I think as much as I agree with all of the other callers, I have come down on the government with regards to the perception of conflict of interest as well as others. So I will assure the viewers that Karen and we will work to ensure that we will minimize that as much as reasonably possible. But as the professor said, she is also technically campaigning and trying to make a case as well. So to some extent, it is very subjective with regards to how much of it is a conflict of interest that she has to ensure that she doesn't break, and how much of it should she not necessarily bother with because she has to do certain roles and functions in the position that she's in. But more or less, that's all the time we have today. There is so much more that we could talk about, but we'll have to stick up in it there. I'd like to thank all of our callers. Apologies for the technical difficulties with regards to not hearing us on the phone, but you made your points. We heard you. We're very grateful for all of your contributions. And yes, this is just the next chapter in the saga of our democracy, as my two colleagues have more or less pointed out this entire show. And we will continue to be discussing this throughout Talking Points, I am sure, because I don't know if you've realized it, folks, but as I open the show, I will close the show to say there seems to be a pattern, a trend, and we do have to ask ourselves, where will we find it leading us to in the future? If we think it is bad enough now, are we going to assume that things are just going to automatically get better with the people who are in the current positions now? And that is Parliament. That is not just the current government administration. We'll see you once again tomorrow morning. Have a good day, folks. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Secret Girls Arts in School presents Wonderland, a bazaar with a difference.
20%.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Royston Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punch board, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss the many giveaways and surprises for all kids. Kids, are you ready for face painting, sweet parang, DJ music, Santa workshop, kids corner, dunk tank, wheel of fortune, and so much more? Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Royston Road, Port of Spain, comes alive, 12 noon to 6 p.m.
Wonderland!
I am Kemuel Pascal, and we are WESN, Content Capital.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future